right, let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us to discuss is national trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We can see the beginning here of the cross-examination. State seems to be going into the area where I thought the testimony was weakest. I thought it did a decent job, but weakest, and that is explaining what we see on the video and how that dovetails with this whole dissociative disorder and all these other mental illness that they were talking about. What do you make of the cross-examination thus far?
So far, the cross-examination is going exactly. I thought the same thing that you thought, which is that's the only way to do it. I will also say Dr. Andrew Clark is the most likable psychiatrist I have ever seen testify in any trial I've ever been a part of or a witness to, and I've been in over 1,000 of them. He is so likable. He is so, I mean, I really love this expert, right? So the prosecution obviously is going to have to be very tasteful in the way they break it down, and it's not like he's hiding the fact that he did not spend 10 million years with Carly Gregg and intimately knowing her. But again, she was 14 years old when this happened, so it's understandable that she did not have a well-established relationship with a psychiatrist by the time that this happened. That's understandable. But he's a very likable witness. Again, this is my personal opinion. He's the most likable psychiatrist I have personally ever seen. It must be playing well in the courtroom, but the prosecution is doing what they have to do. And by the way, what else can they do? That's the only thing they can do. They're not going to allow, it's not like cross-examining a principal who was a witness to a school shooting, where sometimes the other side just simply does not cross-examine that person. You have to cross-examine Dr. Andrew Clark, because Dr. Andrew Clark basically said, if you just let it stand, she was legally insane when it happened. She had dissociative fugue. She was bipolar. She had all these. She cold turkey got off the Zoloft, and even her doctor told her not to do that. It's understandable that that would have ramifications. So right now, I'm seeing it the way you're seeing it. The prosecution is doing what they have to do, but this was a very, very, very good witness for the defense.
And to your point, we've talked, as we've been watching this together. He was on the stand for a really long time.
Yes.
Right. And he is very likable. He talks in layman's terms, but how do you get in and get out with this particular witness? How do you just make your point without keeping him on the stand too much longer and then losing that point?
The jurors, I always use this analogy. They are standing on a swaying boat. It's swaying left and right, left and right. If you ask them at any given time in the trip, where is the boat leading, they'll tell you where it's leading at that moment, right? It's always swaying. When that witness, Dr. Andrew Clark, got on the stand, in my opinion, he swayed the boat in favor of not guilty by reason of insanity. So to answer your question, Matt, if I was a prosecution, I would come back and rely on the fact that, hey, this is still your opinion. We have a video. We know what she did. We know that she did it the way she did it. Can you admit that sometimes you're wrong? Can you admit that sometimes somebody will just play this up? She might be a malingerer. So that's where I would leave it. I would leave it with open-ended questions and let him get off the stand and get on with my other expert who's going to say something different.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the best play here. You go in, you get out, and then you bring your own expert in. I think that's the best play. All right, Michael, stand by. All right, we'll get you back to court in the deadly daughter murder trial in just a moment. But first, let's discuss with national trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, going right down the line, as we discussed earlier, sort of attacking the points where his testimony was the weakest. And quite frankly, again, when you talk about this dissociative thing and this fugue state and the idea that maybe she didn't remember killing her mom, those are the things that, to me, are the toughest to sort of buy. Because, again, she starts calling friends, but it kind of plays into the narrative as well, because if she didn't remember what she did, then she sees that she kills her mom, and she's got this sort of maybe out of the fugue state. Why isn't she more panicked and saying, oh my God, this happened or something happened here, come and help me? It doesn't seem that way, and I think, again, that still remains the toughest thing to explain.
Well, he explained it earlier in the day in his testimony. He did say that he was specifically asked, why wasn't she panicked? And he said if she panicked, that would mean that she did not have dissociative fugue. The fact that she did not panic shows that she did in fact have dissociative fugue. Also, we have something that sheds light to all of this. That's not testimony. That's not his opinion or anybody else's opinion. The victim in the case is testifying in her favor. Her stepfather is testifying in her favor. And when he testified, he said, I still speak to her every day on the app, on the Skype, whenever they allow me to do it. He was shot, and his wife was shot by this kid, and he was shot by the kid, and he's testifying in her favor. And one more thing, We see her on the camera right now in a t-shirt. Note to all defense attorneys, when you have a kid, an actual child you're representing, don't dress them up in the courtroom as though they're an adult. I wanted to see her in a t-shirt and jeans and sneakers in that courtroom so the jury could see her. But they're looking at her in an adult, in that outfit, that ensemble. She looks like an adult. That's a whole side note. But to answer your question, Michael, I feel like the fact that her stepfather's testifying in her favor and that Dr. Andrew Clark has already said that the fact that she did not panic in that video shows me that she was in fact going through a dissociative fugue state. To me, I've been convinced. Maybe I just like that Dr. Andrew Clark too much, Michael. Maybe I'm his fan, but that's my opinion on this.
All right, that's a good analysis there, but let's get you back into court now.